Welcome to What Are You Even Talking About? The podcast where we talk a little bit about everything. I am your host, the Nomothete. Talking about the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to What Are You Even Talking About? A podcast where we talk a little bit about everything. Today's guest is Julius Peckins. He is a life coach, has a master's in psychology from Pepperdine University. He inspires people to make change within themselves every day. He works with clients who face stress, anxiety, communication, and relationship issues, and helps them find solutions and strategies to overcome them. Because of his master's, he has a solid foundation in the theories and practices of human behavior, motivation, and development. Thank you for being on the show and welcome. Happy
Yeah,
New Year to you.
thank you for having me as well. I'm really honored to be a part of your podcast.
I definitely needed it. Today's topic is one that's really close to my heart, and that's mental health. I have struggled in my life with mental illness, being diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder at the age of 13. So
Mhm.
I've been dealing with it most of my life, and I'm almost 40 now. And I've also had a lot of depression and just a lot of mental health issues, substance abuse, all of these things, got me to where I am. But it was hard getting through it without the right support and the right, knowledge going into it that a lot of people don't have nowadays. And
Mhm.
we need to get more knowledge out there so people can facilitate how to deal with mental illness and have a better mental health in general. Because, I mean, you can look in the news nowadays and stress and mental illnesses run rampant, it seems like it's just so many people are having issues with their mental health and a lot of people don't address it. So I wanted to talk about that for this month, actually, maybe the next few months, talking to different people, getting their, input on the mental health epidemic, it seems like. So before we do all of that, with this podcast, we like to let the last guest pick a question for the upcoming guest, and without knowing who the next guest is. So the question was, what fuels you? What sparks the flames of living for you?
That is a good question. I guess what motivates me and what fuels me the most is just striving just to be a better person every day. My motto for my life hasn't been living for the past like 26 years now is just to do the best that I can each day and just kind of learn about like what I've been doing right, what I've been doing wrong in there too. Because each like day is kind of like a trial and error because no one can really be perfect like every day because it's impossible at that point. So I always just try to do what I can to strive to be better and just like changing the way that in terms that I can make myself feel happy at the end of the day. And I think what motivates me the most part too is just to see myself succeed in the future too. I have like the vision of like being successful already at the pillar of support right there, but I want to focus more in the present moment so that way my future self can be proud of like all the accomplishments I've been through, the struggle, the good and the bad and ugly, and just look back at it and say like I'm really glad I made it this far.
That's an amazing answer. That's good. I like that. I mean, that's what it's all about, is to be able to see a future that we want and we desire and do the things that we need to do to get it. Like, that's why we can look back and be like, wow, that was hard, but I made it.
Right.
And, it's that feeling of, you did it. And, a lot of people don't have that nowadays. It's a lot of people are depressed and a lot of people are hurting. And it's sad because they don't have to. And like with me, I didn't know that I didn't have to hurt. Like
Mhm.
I didn't really see any way out of the issues that my life was facing at the time. But now looking back, I see that the struggle was for a reason, but it didn't have to be as hard as I had made it because of where I was in my mindset and how my, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the love I didn't have for myself. And
Right.
it really took a toll on me. Uh, what do you think is some of the reasons why people have mental illness? Or as far as why do you think it stresses people so much and it causes mental illness? What are the stressors that cause mental illness?
Most of the stuff can just come from like, pressure from like maybe from like work or just like from school or like relationships people can be into too. It can also maybe go back into childhood stuff there too, how people have been developed as a person. From a psychology field, there's a theory called the psychodynamic theory, where basically it's talking about how you grew up in the family in terms of like how you were raised by your mom or your dad or grandparents, whoever was raising you shapes you into the person that you are like now. So if someone grew up in an abusive household, for example, they're more likely to kind of have like more of those abusive like traits in there too, especially when it comes to like friendships or relationships, because that's how they would perceive themselves. That's how they kind of like ingrown in their mind, saying like this is what normal to them too. I think what also comes into fact too is just that people deal with these like mental health issues. It's very difficult to kind of get out of like that mind state too, because dealing with that, it's kind of more the state of the mind there too. It's more like how can you get out of that mental space of being like depressed and like actually trying to reach out help too. And that's the hard part too, because like at least like for me in a way too, because I always like was struggling. Like I don't want to reach out for help because like I don't want to feel like a burden to people, and that could be a potential reason why many people don't really reach out because they think that they want to try to solve everything on their own most of the time too. But if you don't really reach out to help in there too, there's no way we can all like help each other get better and do what we can to make sure that your mental health is stable.
And it also takes support because we can't do everything alone. Like
Right.
it's just impossible to do everything alone. You're always going to need other people, and so we should all take that help when we need it. But it is so hard to get out there and be like, I'm gonna ask for help for this thing I can't explain or how I'm feeling. And it's so hard to explain how you feel sometimes. So, and you don't want people to misconstrue you or, think that you're crazy. I know that was a
Yeah.
big thing for me.
Because
It was just like, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, because the first step is just admitting that you need help too. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Like for me, it was, I didn't feel like anybody would believe me.
Mm,
Like, and that was a big thing because in my family, we're deeply religious, Southern Pentecostal, and you don't talk about things like that. It's hard to bring that up to people who you love, and they might change their dynamic of you, like how they perceive you. And I know that's a lot of it too, is people are always worried about how they're going to be judged about if they say they have a mental illness. And having a mental illness diagnosis is hard because people will treat you differently.
right.
And
Hmm.
that comes from doctors, that comes from doctors, your friends, your family. As soon as you're diagnosed with something, people tend to use that as an excuse for everything in your life. And it's
Hmm.
like, if you disagree with them, they're like, have you taken your meds today? And you're like, it has nothing to do with me taking my meds.
Yeah.
I just
Hmm.
disagree with what you're saying. So it's like, people use it and it's hard to get away from that diagnosis once you have it. Especially when it comes to things like schizophrenia or BPD, or DID, just different, the more aggressive mental illnesses. Like it's once they label you that, you're like in the system for it, and they just treat you differently. They really treat you differently. I know when I got put in the hospital a few years back, and you could just look on people's faces when they would read the diagnosis, like they would treat you like you didn't understand what was going on the entire time you're in there. People literally take however they think of whatever mental illness you have, whatever that's like in their head to them, that's how they'll treat you.
Hmm.
And it makes it hard to get that help when people are, treating you like you're dumb or treating you like you don't understand things. And it's like I understand I'm the same person, but y'all are treating me different. And I
Right.
know that was a hard thing for me to get over, with my own journey through mental illness. Um, what do you think we can do to help support each other when it comes to mental health? What are
The
some of
best.
the key things?
Throughout my journey, I feel the best ways we can support each other is just like support people with mental health is just to reach out to other people, maybe reach out to someone that you haven't talked in a while to, because you never really know what someone can be going through too. Someone can be having a bad day like today, and we would never know. I feel it's always good to reach out to people and just know what's going on in their lives and just see how we can provide that support in there too. And I think just spreading some positive affirmations towards like people too. Usually on like my close friends and like Instagram and too, always like saying like, hope you have a good day today. Hope today surprises you too, to like people that I know over there too. And yeah, I like doing it because like I always like making sure everyone can have a good day in there too. Because these are people I may not see like face to face, but I was like saying like online in there too. So I feel like doing that can be really good. And I feel like also another thing to just be aware of for mental health is just practice some gratitude, do some journaling, and just self-reflect on like what you learned throughout this month, and just learn how to improve your mental health in that aspect too, and just try out different things.
I think that's very good ways to help and support people. I feel like being positive helps more than, coming at people with aggression or yelling and arguing all the time. Like if you literally just back them up and show them that you're there for them, that it helps far more than fighting. And I know a lot of people deal with that too when it comes to like mental illness and substance abuse and addiction, is that people would rather fight with them than be the supportive, you know, shoulder they need. And
Mhm.
it makes it hard to, reach out when you're worried that the support system that you have isn't going to be supportive. So it's like, you're always worried about something. And that's how it was for me. And I did it by myself. And that means anybody can do it for themselves, but no one should have to go through it alone, because
Right.
that's how
Yeah.
we get so many suicide. Suicide is high right now. And it's mostly men. As men, we have some struggles when it comes to mental health that is not seen in women, or not as highly seen in women. Like we have the highest suicide rate, which means, it's because the stressors men have are to a point where nowadays, if you say something that's nice to a woman, she might take that as sexist, or people start treating you a different way, and you have to worry about what your family thinks. You have to worry about what your job thinks, and that's situations that we all deal with, but it seems to be heavier on men, especially now. And men don't reach out like women will. Like women have a higher rate of asking and seeking help for their mental illness than men do. And what do you think men should do as far as watching their mental health and being aware of the signs that they might need help?
For at least for the men part, they should look into like do some research upon like the mental health stressors that they could be potentially facing right now. It could just not just also mentally too, but also look into the physical and emotional state too. Like what are you eating? Are you getting out? Are you like going out and like exercise and stuff in there too? Because the mental health is more like part of the brain in there too, but we also got to take care of our physical health in a way too, because everything co-joins with each other in there too. I think for us as like men there too, we gotta start being more assertive with our emotions and actually start expressing it towards like other people stuff in there too. Because from my experience, I always been trying to like kind of bundle up my emotions a lot of the times too, because I wouldn't know how the other person would react to something where I would say if it's the truth when it's the truth. So I just been learning just to kind of just be more honest and be more assertive towards like what you're feeling right now. Mental health towards it could be like a family member, a counselor, or a significant other in there too. We gotta start being more honest of our emotions. We need to start reaching out for help when we need it, and we shouldn't try to just handle things on our own in there too. We gotta take a sort of our own lives so that no one else should have to suffer the same way that we do.
I feel that's great, a great answer because I know for the longest time I wouldn't ask for help. And that's because of the stigma that comes with being a male though. Like you were
Yeah.
told your whole life, boys don't cry. Like you don't show emotion because you're a man. Like you don't show weakness. And like these statements have made it to where men are so much more fearful to ask for help or have people not believe them nowadays that they would rather go without, and that's a shame because they need mental health recovery too. And it's hard in this world today as far as getting that help. It can be, I know, in a lot of situations a lot of people can't even afford the help they need to get them through their mental illness. And it's hard, especially in states, like I live in the South, and it's hard to get quality help, especially being a black male,
Hmm.
because there's always stigma being a black male, like people fear you, and people are always worried about what you might do or you might hurt them. And it's tough. And so many people, especially people of color, go without that help because of all the stigmas and old racism that there's been in the world, and they're dying. Like
Hmm.
black people have the highest rate of schizophrenia diagnosis in the world, especially in America. Like we're about 2.1%, I think. And that's ridiculous because a lot of that's because of stressors, that we go through in our life. And some of it's, genetic, but some people never have to go through getting schizophrenia because they've never been that stressed in their life or their DNA markers didn't, activate once they went through certain stressors. And that's because of socioeconomic problems and or in culture issues and not having jobs, not having money, like all of these things build on a person. And
Hmm.
it affects them in ways that they might not see that's going to happen. Because I know with myself, I like using myself as an example. Um, I started to get really depressed. And I, didn't realize it at first, but slowly over time, I would stop eating. I stopped hanging out with people. I became really reclusive.
Hmm.
And by the time I had realized it, I, might not have showered for 3 days. And I, wasn't talking to my kids. And it was just a lot to take in. And then you have to realize how do I pull myself out of this?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
when you're worried about how do I pull myself out of this, you have a lot of negative self-talk, and you're just like, I'll never get out of this. This is wrong. Like, I shouldn't be here. I don't know how I got here. Like, these are all things we say to ourselves, and it's like a cycle. Or like I tell most people, everything snowballs. So if you're thinking negative, it's going to snowball into more negativity. If you're
Hmm.
thinking positive, it's going to snowball into more positivity, and it can be trying when you feel like you're doing your best and that your best isn't good enough. And I feel like a lot of people feel like that nowadays. So it's just tough. And
It.
I've realized that, yeah, like it's just tough. It's tough out there right now. um,
Yeah. It's.
like everything is, I don't know what's going on nowadays, but people are just losing it. And we need to support each other far more and learn how to, you know, support people. What do you think is the biggest issue? Or no, I won't say that. What do you think is something that people need to learn as far as supporting themselves?
In terms of supporting themselves, we gotta be patient with it. It's not a race at that point to when we'll actually be fully healed in that aspect too. Like it takes time to like learn more about yourself in there too. It takes you almost a whole lot to figure out what you want to do in your life in there too. So I want people just be kind to themselves too. Don't be too hard on yourself if you're not at the point in your life where you don't have like a house or the biggest money in the world in there too, because everyone values success and happiness in their own ways too. Maybe having like a small apartment starting to too could be a small happiness to them. So I want people to know that you can't stress too much about the future because the future's unknown at that point too. And you can't live your past. You gotta live your present moment right now and make do with what you have right now and try and make each day count there too. Like count your blessings, be grateful for what you have right now, and just be appreciative of like who you are as a person too. I mean, just like write down some things that you really like about yourself and maybe write down some things you can really improve upon yourself too. Because at the end of the day, when you get home, you're going to be you because you're the only person that knows you the most compared to like other people. And I think that's just also what we
Yeah.
got to take in consideration because we got to stop comparing each other towards like social media, like how are people doing too, because no one, it's all just kind of a fake thing in there too, because like you don't know that person actually doing good in there too, because everyone's gonna post the good stuff, not the bad stuff. And I think just we shouldn't try to just compare ourselves, and we should
Right.
start trying to just improve and change upon with ourselves too. And I think by doing that, that's when you start seeing the growth and change within your mindset.
I feel like if you can change your mindset, you can change anything.
Hmm.
Like, because you are your hardest critic, you're going to be the person that's hardest on you. And if you can defeat yourself, you can literally take on anything. And I had to learn that myself because, like, I was my hardest critic and I was the person who was beating me down the most, even though that was because of over time and years that, whatever I heard, I kept. And I feel like people keep too much of what other people say about them and how they treat them, and it makes it harder on it becomes more stressors, and
Hmm.
we start hearing that in our heads, and it's just hard to get out of it. But once you do, like life can be so much better, and anybody can change their mindset. I feel like,
Hmm.
and people need to realize that more because it's just difficult to get through major events in their lives without it. Because, like, literally, I had some friends in the past few years that have died and it hit me hard. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I just didn't know what to do, how to deal with it. They were really close to me. And that'll put you into a place where you might start thinking about death and then suicide, and it spirals quickly. It
Yeah.
does spiral really quickly, and we have to keep a hold of that spiral. Like, we literally have to do all we can to heal ourselves of past trauma, and if we don't, the end doesn't look good. It just, like, it really doesn't. So when it comes to trauma, how do you think we can alleviate the trauma we've gone through? How can we become okay with it?
I think the one thing we become okay with is just acknowledge what happened during like whatever like that trauma could be. We gotta acknowledge that it did happen. We can't gaslight ourselves into saying that it didn't happen. We gotta acknowledge that what happened was a real experience, and we gotta learn from that experience and just know that forgiveness is a very like key important too to alleviate too, not just forgiving them, but more just forgiving yourself in a way that I am able to move on from this. I know what happened from there, and I can like move on from there moving forward. And I think just with helping with trauma, it comes again just to gain like support and assistance from like mental health therapists, or there's even like actually like emotional support hotlines you can even like talk to too. It's all kind of like it's all like free, where you can just talk to like any like care counselor and stuff in there too. It's really good for people that really can't get into therapy right now, because I know it can be pretty expensive right now too. So that's like another option they can do in
Yeah.
there too, because I feel like seeking out like resource stuff here too can be really important too. Because dealing with those kind of traumas is not, it's definitely not easy. It's something like you really need like a whole village to help out with that too.
And see, they have in other cultures, they have shamans, and that's what shamans do. Is when people go through something, emotionally crying or something terrible, the shaman comes in and talks to them and listens to them mostly and helps them get through these traumas that they have faced. And usually, with the help of a shaman, they come out of it looking, being so much better or feeling so much better that they too want to go help somebody else feel better. And I feel like it's a contagious thing once we start being positive towards each other and actually showing the real support, then it'll be contagious and it'll literally pass on to each person, and we'll be able to heal more people than and might not even need the medications and stuff that come with mental illness and mental health, because when you're kind to somebody, you're happy, and that happiness will make you not need certain medications. And yes, some things are because of the brain and just how you're wired, but a lot of it can be alleviated through kindness.
Right.
And people don't see how much of a force kindness can be, because like you said, you never know what somebody's going through. Like, you just never know. And there's so many stressors out there for different people that anything could make their day hard. So just being kind literally can make someone's entire day. Like, you can literally just say, you look nice today, and people that might change someone's entire day. And it's really amazing that something that small could literally be the one thing somebody needed to not end their life.
Hmm.
And I know I've dealt with a lot of that with friends and people I've worked with, and literally being just nice can change it and change them. So we should definitely be more kind towards others, I think.
Yeah, I
I
I
think that
definitely agree with that, because like I said, like you never know what someone can be going through too. I think what's important to know is just that it it doesn't take much to be kind of someone too. Even like a small comment can help improve their day too. Especially like people that work in like those kind of like retail jobs, customer service. They gotta deal with a whole lot of people like every day in there too, whether it's like good people or like bad employees and stuff in there too, or bad customer service too. And I think just what I feel that would make the world like a little more better place too. We actually like stop and listen and be more compassionate towards people and just listen to what they're going through. Not try to problem solve the issues, but just listen to what they're going through in there too. Because I used to have kind of like more like a savior complex, where I try to like save everyone as much as I can there too. But then it's just like I wouldn't even have energy for me at that point. So I nowadays more just practice active listening, just listening to what they're going through, and just like kind of get them to like express more, ask them more questions stuff in there too, and just let them know that I am here for you. I want to listen to you, and just let them explain to me like what's going on, and then go from there.
I feel like that helps a lot more. That's the support we need to be, teaching people, is because some people just need somebody to listen, and that can also improve their entire day. like just being heard does so much for people too. And, a lot of people nowadays don't feel heard. And you can see that in, with politics and the government, with people in school, with all the school shootings, people don't feel heard. And so one of the best things we can do is listen. Like, and that's what we need to, I know I need to work on that sometimes, especially when it comes to customer service people, because I have to talk to them every single day. And I'll get upset with them because I'm like, you're not doing all that you can, to actually help the customer.
Hmm.
And, that'll ruin someone's entire day. Talking to customer service will ruin your day with the quickness. And it's just, they might be going through something too. And we have to stop and think, empathy is a thing for a reason. And if we need to empathize with people and be like, okay, they might be having a bad day. So let me try to not make it more difficult for them.
Right.
Unless they just ain't doing their job. And then you have to do what you got to do. But, for the most part, people are, just like you, people. And if we treat people like we want to be treated, it makes things go so much easier.
I definitely agree with that. It's definitely something like you would think would be so easy too. I guess like, people just come and go and people grow up in different upbringings in there too. I think it's just we gotta start being more compassionate and being more patient with people too, because someone can be going through the worst day of their lives right now, and we wouldn't know that. We just assume like, oh, he's just being a douchebag right now, just like we
Yeah.
don't know that. You're seeing like what he's perceiving right now, it's just something different between the other people too. And I think it kind of like brings to a point for like mental health in a way too, where if someone doesn't show enough love towards one person, gives them a reason why they lash out towards other people too, because they didn't get that same love and like appreciation from like back home or like even from like friends and stuff in there. They want to seek out like validation, appraisal. They want to feel like noticed. And when they don't feel noticed, that's why they want to try to reach out and like trying to validate something in there too. And I think for all those kind of people that have like those mental health issues or like even like the shooting in there too, I feel like if the world were given like a little bit of some love and some appreciation, then maybe it could have prevented some of like the incidents we've had the past like decade now too. It's something I usually think about.
I definitely agree. Uh, how do you think we can impact mental health in the fact or in the reason of changing how people see mental illness? Because there's a lot of stigma when it comes to mental illness. And like I was saying earlier, that once you're diagnosed with something, people tend to treat you differently.
I feel to change that, it's gotta start with like maybe having real like deep personal like stories. You can like start telling people about it too. Like this is how I dealt with like major depressive, for example, and there too. Like explain to them like what it looks like, what symptoms that a person can face, and this could happen to you if you don't reach out like the special help and stuff in there too. Cause I think the main thing is just why there's so much of a stigma is because maybe people don't even think it exists that much. It's just like all just in your head and you can get over it. But it's not that simple, Because if it was,
Yeah.
then like mental health wouldn't we wouldn't need like any therapists in that point too. I think it's just people are so prone to just like not see it as an actual like issue and they just think it's not a big deal. But I think we need to start like preaching to the people saying that, mental health is a real issue. And we need to start putting it out there in terms of like social media, make like some posts about it too, and just like even engage with like audiences and like public appearance and stuff in there too. We gotta actually start talking about like these issues so that way not only will just help out like us as people in there too, but also like help kind of keep the community safe in there too, knowing like what this is, how can we help people and just kind of go from there because someone can be on the autism spectrum and like maybe people don't even know what that is at that point. We gotta educate these people in the school systems, even like maybe or like in high school stuff in there too, high school and college, and just know what this is. So that way we will at least have not 100% understand, but at least knowledge upon like, okay, how we know how to help this kind of person like this too with this kind of issue in there too. That way we will be prepared for what's gonna come next.
Feel like a lot of people nowadays don't understand mental illnesses enough because we see things on media and that's how we think they are. So like I know for the longest time I would watch something about schizophrenia. I talk a lot about schizophrenia because that's what I was diagnosed, schizoaffective. So they show it a certain way on TV and they show it a certain way in movies, and people start to believe that. And they don't realize that's a psychological thing too, is that once we see something over and over and over again, we'll start to believe it's true. Like we'll just over time, repeatedly hearing it, we'll start to believe it's true, even if it's not. And that's something that psychology really goes into depth about and learning about, is that we can take that bias and then it change the way we think about something towards other people, and we'll start treating them like that because that's all we've ever seen about it. And I feel like the media needs to change how they show mental illness and do a more realistic version of that instead of doing these hyper, you know, extended situations that have nothing to do with the real illness. Like, A Beautiful Mind is a great movie, but it might not be the same way somebody deals with schizophrenia. And there's so many different types, and schizophrenia is a spectrum of things, and you literally can be on one side or the other of that and not have like hallucinations or visual hallucinations sometimes, or audio hallucinations. So teaching people about the different mental illness so that we have a foundation to work with, I think is definitely needed nowadays. Like, because people only, like I said, people only know what they see. And if they're looking at movies, it's not a proper depiction of that, mental illness, especially like schizophrenia or DID. The movie Split was a great movie, but they were saying that that's basically not how somebody with DID would react. And there was a movie back in the day, I think it was in the 70s, it was a mini series called Sybil, and it was based on a woman who went to a therapist, and she had all these different personalities, and the woman basically made a killing off of her, like wrote a book, and got rights to a movie deal and all that stuff from that person. And then just to find out later, the lady came back to her and was like, I faked all of it.
Mm.
So you see what I'm saying? Like now she's just made millions about showing people with DID, and this is how people are going to see it. And then it was fake the whole time. And they said that the percentage of people that claimed they had DID after that miniseries went from under 100 in the world, or at least
Wow.
in the United States, to over like, I want to say it was like 40,000 more people all of a sudden said they had it after seeing that, and the lady had faked it. Like, so the therapist that made all the money basically showed people this diagnosis, and it was based on a lie.
Mm.
So that makes it harder to, judge mental illnesses because people will fake them. And, the DSM is will take almost anything nowadays and turn it into a psychological illness. And,
Yeah.
there's a lot of issues I have with the DSM, but like, because not everything is a mental illness. Some things are just people being a jerk. And
Oh, most
so,
definitely. Most definitely.
yeah, so like, we have to work on how we diagnose things and how we show certain mental illness, because even though they show like a very exaggerated version of that, people start to believe that, and people will start to act like that so they can say they have these mental illnesses because they think they can get something out of it. So we have to be cautious and show people, give people that knowledge to be able to discern it for themselves, because if they don't, people will do like that lady did, and she just wanted attention, so she made up personalities. And it was like, how could, why? Like, did you really need that much attention?
Yeah,
And
it's
like, it's bad. And I feel like not enough people are knowledgeable on mental illness to provide support for the most part. Like, they just aren't anymore. And if you don't take psychology classes or try to get a psychology degree, like you'll never find out about that. And that's a shame. Like we definitely need to be more open about it and teach people, especially if they have family members dealing with any of these mental illnesses. Like,
mhm.
that's the support you want mostly is from your family and friends. So we have to, if, get them to listen to us and not think they already know about the mental illness because I've noticed a lot of people don't. Like in my case, a lot of people will treat me like I don't remember stuff well. And I'm like, why do y'all think that? And they're like, because your mental illness. And I'm
Mm.
like, but memory loss isn't a part of schizophrenia. So why would y'all think that?
So
And
you
it's,
get knowledgeable on that.
yeah, so like you have to sit down and talk to them, and be like, no. So, but that's when they use that though. I know it's nothing about my mental health. See, that's what I've learned to do with that. I've learned to use that to my advantage of when people, if I disagree with somebody and they're like, did you take your medicine? I'm like, that had nothing to do with my medicine. There's
Mm.
nothing to do with my medicine. Or they'll be like, that never happened. I'm like, why would you think I would think that would never happen? And people will use that to try to get over on you. And that's the other part about it. If you're going to at least do that, be knowledgeable about what you're talking about, because if you're not, they'll know. And people don't realize that people dealing with the mental illness usually know so much more about it because they're dealing with it. And people treat them like they don't. I know it's been hard to talk to doctors and ask for certain things from them. Like I wanted a CT scan, to see if we could see the schizophrenia activity in my brain.
Hmm.
And and I had to fight my doctor about just getting a CT scan. And I shouldn't have had to fight her that much just to get a simple CT scan.
Hmm.
And it was because she treated me like I didn't understand my illness. And I didn't understand what the possibilities could be when it comes to my illness. And people need to stop thinking that just because someone has a mental illness or a mental disability, that they have a problem with their educational disability. Like, because that's not the case most times. Most people know about what they deal with. They take the time to look into it because they don't want to deal with it anymore. And I feel like that's another thing we need to teach people about is a person who really has a mental illness doesn't want to deal with that on an everyday basis. Like they just don't want to have to go through the pain that they have to go through with it. So they'll learn different ways to get through that and try to help themselves when they can. But if they can't, then we have to help them
Hmm.
and do that in the most positive way possible because it's so hard not, if you don't have that. And it becomes life threatening. And people don't realize that, it doesn't start off life threatening.
Hmm.
Like we start very small, just like anything else, and it grows and grows and grows. And then it becomes something that we can't handle anymore. And it usually ends with suicide or harming yourself or harming someone else. Like there's so many different ways it can lash out and change a person. And we don't have to let them go through that. We don't have to let them get to that point. We don't have to let them struggle alone. And a
Hmm.
lot of the things that they can do is getting the knowledge they need. At least that's what I feel like.
Yeah, it's all just more just educating the general public about what it is in there too. Because, like you said, the last thing we want is just for people to lash out in terms of like their anger, frustration, sadness in there too. Because all this coming just from like a broken like heart from like what's going on like inside their psyche mind in there too. And I think it's just important for people to know that mental health is such a really big issue nowadays too. We gotta start taking it more seriously now too, because ever since since like COVID back like 4 years ago now too, like the fact that we didn't get that much like mental health services and just staying home all the time in there too, that really affected everyone in there too. That whole almost 2 years in that point in there too, give or take in there. And I think that's what's also could also cause all this issues that we're having like right now too. Like a lot of people are really showing like their true colors and stuff in there too. After like that 2 years in there too, you start seeing like people change in like different ways than you could never have like imagined too. And that's what makes it like really scary most of the time too, because like you never really know what someone could be capable of too, or know what they're going through. And sometimes are people that even like suicidal, like you would never know because they always seem like
Yeah,
so happy and positive too. And that's why I always try to be ask people just to be more honest with like what's really going on in there too, because no one can be happy 24/7, because it
yeah,
doesn't it can't work that way. If you're happy all the time and it's just like you're not like living at that point. It's just like you're still just got experience like anger, sadness, disappointment in there too, because we gotta start trying to just be more open about like what's going on and just know that it's okay to reach out to help and you're not gonna be a burden.
yeah. I agree with that. And even though that's hard, it can still be done. And that's what people fail to realize. It can be done, and we know it can be done because other people have done it.
Hmm.
And, once one human does it, that means every other human is capable of doing it. And, that's something we have to teach people about too. Um, Effort, once we get our mind to something, humans are really good at getting it done.
Hmm.
We decide we want to do something, and we will go through hell or high water to make it happen. We wanted to learn how to fly like birds. We did that. We wanted to know what the moon looked like and could feel it. We did that. It's once we put our mind to stuff, we can usually succeed in it. And that leaves the, framework open for anything. Like we can literally do anything when we put our mind to it. And we can do even more things when we get many minds on the subject and decide we all want to do something. So that's, shows that we're social creatures and that with support, we can literally reach the stars. And, that should show people that that's why we need help sometimes, to bring it all the way back to the beginning of what we were talking about. With that help comes great things.
Hmm. I think.
Anytime we can collaborate and, I can talk about what I know and you can talk about what you know, and we can look at it together, and then we know more and we live for longer, because that's what it was back in the day when we were still hunter gatherers. One person could go out and try to hunt for food and they might get something, they might not. But if five of us go, we're definitely more likely to catch something that we can all eat on and survive. And it's really about survival. Like we really need to see that as humanity. Until we see some aliens, we are all we got.
Right.
And because of that, we need to work together and support each other more so that we can all benefit from it and not just a few. And I feel like that's a big problem too with, how economics is nowadays and finances are nowadays. It's hard to just be human. And it's hard to, to get this things you need to survive in a way that's beneficial to you, that it's it makes people struggle for things they shouldn't have to struggle for. Why are we paying $2 and $3 and $4 for water when it comes from the sky and it's all over the planet? Like these are things that if we alleviate these stressors, then people are happier. If they don't have to worry about eating, if they don't have to worry about the water they're getting, if they don't have to worry about housing, if they don't have to worry about my bills are going to be, too high for me to pay and then everything's going to get shut off. Like these are all stressors that we all deal with, and it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere anytime soon. So if we can alleviate those simple needs, then it would help all of our mental health. What do you think?
I think I definitely agree with you. We gotta alleviate the symptoms for the mental health systems that people can be going through and just be more knowledgeable about it too. Even just looking for the DSM kind of just making sure we actually diagnose like the right like disorder stuff in it too. Because there's been a lot of misdiagnosing in the field of like psychology too, which it does happen most of the time. You can't always be perfect in there too, but we gotta make sure we hold on it on like the first or second try and make sure it's all like correct and stuff in there. Because what's funny? It's just like when you're talking about the girl that faked like the her mental health disorder stuff in her too. That's actually she was inhibiting another one called histrionic personality disorder. It's basically like the main thing is just attention seeking.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they
That's
call it histrionic
ridiculous.
personality disorder. It's just someone that wants like be the center of attention. So it's like if you go to a store, you see someone wearing like a big fruit hat with like Christmas light stuff in it too. She wants to be noticed. She wants someone to pay attention. And the crazy thing is just that if no one pays attention to her, then she lashes out at people. Like, can you look at me for a second? Can you look at me? They want to be talked about like every second of the day. It's very exhausting.
That's wild. Like I couldn't imagine. And see, here's the thing. I was an actor for years. Like I did acting, and with acting comes wanting attention. Like it's just part of the whole point of being an actor is you want people to look at you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a healthier way to deal with that. And I know they have like a theater therapy now, drama therapy, that people can act out their stuff. And that might be something they need to look into because that would help with that. And that would give them the attention they seek without it becoming a problem for other people or they have to deal with that every day. And, a lot of these illnesses, especially, and the other thing about the DSM is when the DSM was first written, there wasn't a lot of tests done and things like tests done for people of color. So a lot of the stuff they were, diagnosing was only for white people. Like it wasn't until later on did they start getting, people of color, testing them too for these things because a lot of the tougher mental illness stuff is for people of color
Hmm.
nowadays. Like Latinos have the second highest rate of schizophrenia out of all people. And it's usually because of stressors that other people don't have to deal with, like racism. And, racism does a big part of how people are growing up. And when you have to tell your 5-year-old child, before they go to school, there might be people that's not going to like you because of the color of your skin, and they might treat you mean, that does something to a person. That, conditions them to fear other people because they might be lashed out at because of the color of the skin, and that's something they can't help. So, with these struggles, we have to either fix that problem or we have to keep people tough, but not tough enough to where they hurt themselves.
Yeah, it's a tricky line too because there's a line of it being like you gotta have thick skin, which is like true in the aspect too, but you can only be tough for a very long time until something breaks you too. I feel like
Yeah,
we gotta start actually like emotionally expressing, like even like crying out and just letting out in there too, because if you hold on to your emotions too strong, try to stay strong in there too. It's just like you're not gonna have time to just be like able to emotionally express yourself. You're gonna become too desensitized to it, and that's I wouldn't want that on anyone there too. I think for anyone that just wants to just try and stay strong in there too, like it's okay to just like it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to
yeah,
like let out your emotion and just express what's going on in there too. Because I would rather have someone just cry to me about what's going on, even with the smallest things, than waking up tomorrow knowing that he like passed away or she. I
yeah,
would rather have that alternative instead of just try to be strong and stuff in there too because I was kind of like that for a little bit because I feel like I was just trying to be strong because like I didn't want to bother people with my problems too. Just was trying to do things on my own there too. But I realized just by doing that, I feel like I didn't really give myself enough time to like even cry at that point, you know.
And I bet you didn't feel like you had time to cry, especially if you're getting a master's in psychology.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it
you
was
have
definitely a
to,
journey. It was definitely like 2 years in there too, all like grad school in there. It's just a bunch of exams and just knowing the material stuff in there. And it was just kind of like a lot that next 2 years because everything was just online there too. So I mean, I was just basically home at the time too with my parents. And I feel the hardest for me, at least getting through that journey, was just kind of being disciplined and staying motivated about it too, and just trying to finish up strong and stuff in there too. Because the last like quarter I had like a really like bad professor stuff in there too. Just like, oh man, it's a really tough grade in there too. It was just like, man, this is really intense in there too. But luckily I was able just to get through and just finish up strong from there. It's just school is like it's very tough nowadays too. Even like going through like
yeah,
school in there too. 'Cause it's not for everyone too, what I've
yeah,
noticed too. It's just I hopefully like in the future there's like more better alternatives besides like going on like college and just doing what you can to get this degree, get another degree in there too. But at that point you're accumulating more depth at that point, because unless they're
yeah.
giving you like a good 90K, 100K job at that point too, it's just like they gotta get you throw you a bone or something at that point.
And see, that's also another reason, more stressors for people is that we add on to ourselves as going to like school and everything like that adds to our stressors. And, even though there are good stressors out there, it still stresses out the body. And,
Exactly.
if it's psychological, it's probably also biological. So, like, once it triggers our brain, then it triggers our body. So, being depressed and being stressed out all the time and not sleeping all weigh on your body. And that's the only body you get. So you got to be
Right.
careful with it. So, we're about at the end of the show. So I want to ask you, what is a question you have for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is?
Okay. The question I have for the next guest is hmm.
I know it's a hard question, right?
Yeah, you're telling me. Oh dang, let's see. Okay, what is something if you were to see your childhood self, what would you say to him or her that's feeling like really sad?
I can't wait to see what the next guest says about that because that's coming up soon. This was the
Okay.
first. This was the first episode of the new year, so you got to help me start out my new year. So
Oh,
happy,
cool.
yeah. So yeah. It was great. So I want to say Happy New Year to all the listeners out there because I didn't do anything for January. I did two small videos and I took a vacation because for the last part of the year I was doing videos every week and I didn't realize how hard it was going to be when I started my YouTube journey. But it is crucial to get those videos out. So I took
Hmm.
a break, but it was well needed. I got a lot of rest, even though I'm going to school right now for psychology. So I'm just starting my psychology career. So I'm going to get my bachelor's right now. But I've noticed it's tough, and people don't realize how tough it is. And whew, but I'm getting there and I'm getting through it. So,
You'll
and
get
that's all
through
that
this.
matters. Oh,
Hmm.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's hard to be a black male doing the things we're doing.
Hmm.
So, pat yourself on the back, sir, for getting a master's in psychology because not a lot of people are doing that nowadays. And people are always looking for an easier way out in life, usually. And, being a black male yourself, that our opportunities to do worse is usually bigger than our opportunity to do better.
Hmm.
So, congratulations
Thank you.
on your masters because if nobody else tells you that, I'm going to tell you that because that's
Thank
needed.
you.
We all need that support out there.
Thank you.
So, congratulations on that. I like to end every episode with saying, thank you for today, thank you for yesterday, and thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality. And at every end, there's a beginning. You guys take care. Thank you for being on the show. I might have you back on here and get you to talk about some other things with me too. How about that?
I would really love that.
All right, cool, cool. I'll talk to you later. You guys take it easy and goodbye for now. And that wraps up another thought provoking episode of What Are You Even Talking About? We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the discussion we had today. Before we go, we want to extend a huge thank you to our amazing guest. Your insights and expertise truly enriched our conversation, and we're grateful for your contribution. And of course, a massive thank you to you, our incredible audience. Your engagement, questions, and feedback make this podcast what it is. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect. Thank you for today. Thank you for yesterday. Thank you for tomorrow. Always remember to question your reality, and at every end, there is a beginning. We love the journey we're on with each and every one of you. Keep those questions coming, keep challenging the status quo, and keep exploring the uncharted territories of your mind. We can't wait to dive into another riveting conversation in our next episode. Until then, take care, stay curious, and keep asking, what are you even talking about? Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and connect with us on social media. We'll catch you in the next one. You guys take care.